Welcome to Tech Career Lab 2022. We're so happy to welcome all of you today at our event. With me today, I have our Director of Consulting Services, Jacques, from our banking division. Today, we'll talk about his career journey at CGI, as well as learn a little bit more about project management and a little bit more about the trends that's coming up. So thank you for joining us, Jacques. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Grace. How about you?
Doing really well. So Jacques, share with us a little bit about your career journey at CGI. What had led you to join us at CGI?
Basically, I'm one of the lucky ones that got acquired by CGI about 2 years ago, when the firm that I was working for at that point was acquired by CGI. So about 2 years with CGI. But I can say, prior to that, probably a good 23 years of program and project management across the big five banks in Canada. Started off, in the tech side and worked my way up to the big scary programs across business and technology. The stuff that no one wants to touch, that is multi-year and millions of dollars and lots of problems and a lot of rescues and fixes and all that. But that's what led me up to and set me up really nicely at CGI because of that experience that I've had with my big bank experience and managing these big programs.
That's excellent. So I bet that you work with many different clients at CGI. So what are the tips and tricks? How do you help them continue to succeed on their transformation journey?
Well, I think the main thing for me is it comes down to relationships, right? So I have numbers of years of experience and relationship that goes for multi years, where you really get to know each other and you understand that you're there to help them and to help them be successful. So the relationship is really deep. The trust is there. You become like a trusted advisor that can help them in their business. And sometimes, they just phone you up and say, "Hey, how can you help me with this?" Or it's not always a case of I need resources or I need help to do this. It's sometimes just a conversation around strategy and what's going on in the market, right?
Excellent. That's wonderful. And what are some of the recent initiatives that you're working on with a few of your clients right now?
Well, there's a couple of ones that's across all the banks right now. So like the whole concept of digitization across the big banks, getting paper out of the branches, automating processes, automating just the technology as much as you can. So that's definitely one. A few years ago, I was part of the whole check imaging drive across the banks, where the banks were allowed to render payment against image versus paper for checks, and just that processing part, and also just I also did the online banking part, where we automated a platform and transformed the online platform for online banking. So it differs from time to time. Now it's all about artificial intelligence and DevOps and stuff like that. But it comes and goes, and I'm enjoying the time that I spend on these programs.
That's wonderful. And speaking of technology, things are evolving so quickly as well. And I guess for the folks that are visiting our booth right now are really keen and interested in getting into the project management world. So I like to, invite you to share with us a little bit about your journey as a project manager, and what are some tips that you have for folks that wants to get into this field?
Yeah, I always joke because I don't think I've ever met a project manager that started up their career as wanting to be a project manager. It's always one of those where and my background is on the tech side. I did computer science at school and business information systems. So that sort of led to a network and position on the tech side. That led to business analysis, and business analysis led to junior PM. Junior PM went to PM, and then it just went up from there. And then once I did my sort of time at each one of the big banks, I got into the consultant field, and that's where I worked at my previous firm and then moved to CGI. So it's not one of those where you can say, okay, day one I'm going to study to be a project manager and I'm going to do it. It always you sort of end up in that space, and you really enjoy, I guess, the variety that it brings, because every project is different, every program is different, right?
Understood. And what would a regular workday be like? for project manager at CGI? Maybe give us a quick walkthrough.
Well, our project managers would normally work at the client shop. They would be part of the client teams, and they could be managing the programs or work on a project. So they would be part of that team. They would. I always say that sort of there's three things every project manager should look at. One is you got to make sure you have the right governance in place. You have decision rights in place. You people know what they're supposed to be doing. The second one is you live by your risks and issues. If you don't manage those well, you're going to fail. And then the third one is around dependencies, right? Interdependencies. You should have an integrated plan across all the different moving parts, as well as understand where are the pieces that's been integrated into other projects, and you have to keep an eye on those moving parts.
That's very helpful, and I hope all of you that's watching is taking good notes there. Speaking of project management, agile, right? Everyone talks about agile. So, how do you kind of see agile evolving in the project management world, and what's up and coming? What's the trend?
Well, Agile's been around for longer than most people imagine. I mean, it's been, a good 10 years at least that it's been active in the market. But what I'm seeing with Agile is, and recently, is that there's definitely a move towards becoming more than just a software development methodology. It's moving into the space of the business where absolutely every department or business unit is involved. Like, for example, HR is involved, marketing is involved. The concept of going to a project meeting or a cadence and you got to take that away and then go and talk to HR afterwards doesn't exist anymore. That
Mhm.
is those stakeholders are at the table from day one because they get the message firsthand, and you're cutting down on that sort of back and forth and making sure the message is well understood, right? So there's more of a stepping away from it's becoming beyond technology, and it's stepping into the enterprise as a way of working.
Wonderful. And I want to just pause to let the audience that's watching the show as well that if you want to leave any comments or questions for us, we do have a comments box. So feel free to leave down the chat box, and we'll also answer on the side for you. So let's talk about CGI and our working culture. As a member of CGI, Jack, what can you share with us a little bit about the leadership style, or how does the member grow within CGI?
Yeah, I mean it's quite interesting because I went from a small firm of about 50 people to a firm of like, I don't know, 67,000 or whatever the number is. It's a big jump, right? So a couple of things that impressed me right off the bat is just the fact that people member staff that work at CGI is referred to as members, right? Meaning that they do believe they have a culture of, if you do right with your staff, you're gonna have happy staff. If you have happy staff, you're gonna have good work. If you're going to have good work, you're going to have happy shareholders, right? So that connection is definitely there. The second part is just the opportunity for growth, right? Like, I've never seen, I've been doing this for like 23 plus years. I've never seen a firm where there's so many opportunities just from a education point of view, growth point of view. Even if you feel like, well, I want to go work somewhere else. I want to go work in Australia or Portugal for a while. You have opportunities to do that, right? Where a lot of smaller firms, you won't have that opportunity.
That's absolutely wonderful to hear, because we always talk about, CGI, we're global, but local at the same time, because there's a lot of proximity partnership that we have. Speaking of member growth and learning and training, what are some of the programs that you're aware of that we have at CGI that helps our member grow or learn?
Well, a lot of it is tied to what career stream you go into, right? Like, so for example, my role as a director consulting services is more on the business development side. So I would take stuff around business development, but then there's also a role, a director level consultant expert, that's sort of more of a professional within, for example, project management. So you would stay that stream where you don't have staff, you're not build necessarily have targets to build the business, but you do have that expertise in project management in a specific field, and it could be cloud, it could be AWS, it could be AI, whatever emerging technology. But you're either a specialist in one field, or you become a someone that has staff that's responsible for targets, responsible for developing teams, right?
Wonderful. And, we see a lot of wonderful things happening around CGI. Corporate social responsibility. That's also a big thing for us at CGI. We're involved in many areas. So, could you share with us a little bit about your division's involvement from the banking services perspective? What are some exciting things that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe that, we you got to give back, and I'm also I'm really happy to see when you do your targets for the year that giving back is always a percentage of that, right? Like you have to do that and give back to community. I mean, United Way is a big example of that, right? Like that's something that the banks are close to. That's something that most organizations are close to, but also in the CGI culture, there's a lot of that where we give back to the organization, we give back to our community. I mean, STEM, the whole STEM application for kids and all that, that's a good example of that. The way we stepped up with COVID is another example on how we've helped. So there's I've always said this. What appeals to me at CGI is if you have a really good idea, and it might be not work, it might be something like social responsibility. It
Mhm.
always feels to me like there's someone that's willing to listen and to champion that for you and help you put it through, right? If that's the right thing to do. So
Yeah.
I mean that from that point of view, I really think it's a good place to work.
Yeah, and we always refer to our employees as members because there is this ownership that we have at CGI. So, share with us a little bit about your thoughts around that. What is the culture like from a ownership membership perspective at CGI?
Yeah, I mean it's a team approach, right? Like I work on a team of folks that build the business, right? So we work together on how we're going to do it. We strategize. We have ideas around that. The same thing when I was out, on a client shop when I was managing a project. Um, I find there is a lot of time for folks that wanted to, develop, grow, have some good ideas. You can sit down with your manager and develop your career and plan it out and say, here is where I want to go. Here is the courses I'm interested in. So that whole sort of we in it together, we one team is definitely in the culture. It's in every member that's part of CGI. It's not just something that's pushed down from the top and no one else is part of it. But it feels to me like everyone is part of the same plan.
hmm That's wonderful. And, as a member at CGI, I can definitely feel the support all around in our leadership too. So, Jack, you being part of our leadership team, what is your leadership style and approach? How would you help your team grow as a leader of the team?
Yeah, I want to quote one of my favorite authors. Zig Ziglar always said that you don't build a business, you build people, and they build a business. And that is sort of my philosophy of the way I do things. Is that I'm one man, I can't do everything, right? Like I need people to help me build my business. And if I develop the people that work for me, then it makes it as a team effort. That's definitely the place where you want to go, right? Because you've got the difference between one person or 20, right? Like that's just the way it is. And if you're good to them, they're going to be good to you as well, right? So I definitely think that's the approach that I take with my group.
Excellent. And we learned a little bit about the technical skills for project manager, but we all know that not only technical is important, right? There's also the soft skills, the attributes. So, can you kind of share with us a little bit about the good qualities, the soft skills of the project manager that you think is important?
And grace extremely important, right? Like you can I always say that you can learn the technical skills, but you can't learn the soft skills. You have to develop the soft skills, right? So example would be to negotiate, to be able to solve a problem, to connect the dots. I always say the biggest advantage you have when you work with the executive at one of the banks is you always have to ask yourself this question: why does he care, right? Like he cares because it's going to impact something that's important to him. So you have to connect the dots for him. This is an extremely busy individual. He doesn't have the time to connect all the dots. So that's our work, is to connect those dots to
Hmm
them and say, this is the reason why you have to care, right? Because it's going to impact A, B, and C. And
hmm
then once you have that conversation and you get into that trusted advisor role, then you're going to be in a position where they're always going to come back to you, right?
That's wonderful. And, CGI, there's a lot of exciting things happening. We also have new grad programs, right, where we target folks that are graduating from university, that wants to join the field. So share with us, what are some of your involvement working with maybe, young grads at CGI?
I actually have a young grad working for me right now as my PCO, personal project control officer. And one of the things that I'm doing with her as well is, I mean, she's obviously helping my team, but part of it is for the time that she's with me is that I want to give her the experience that she needs to make a decision in her life. Because in a year's time, when she graduates, she's going to decide either I'm going to come back to CGI or I'm going to go somewhere else. So I want to give her that full experience to say, okay, hopefully if everything works out well and it's meant to be, she's going to come back to CGI and she's going to be asking for work at CGI because she's already done the time. She loves the culture. She loves the people. So I do think it's sort of a two-way street, right? They
Mhm.
provide you help and you help them at the same time.
Excellent. And I've heard great success stories of our new grad program and the mobility and the growth potential within CGI as well. So tell me a bit about the buddy system that we have at CGI. What is that all about?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I went through it myself when I joined the organization 2 years ago. So it's basically someone that is normally at the same level as you when you join the organization, and they basically walk that first couple of, well, you can't even say the first couple of months. It's probably the first year where if there's any questions they have and they don't necessarily want to go to their boss with everything, they can ask you those questions. I mean, it could be a simple thing like, how do I complete a timesheet, right? Like, what app do I download on my phone to fill out to do my timesheet? And I'm speaking of experience because I've actually did that. But it's basically someone that you can go to and ask the questions, right? Like, and sometimes I think it's quite intimidating as a new member to come in. You don't want to ask too many questions because you kind of feel like, okay, you know what, I don't want to bug my boss with 100 questions every day. But this is a person that walks that walk with you for the first couple of months and helps you navigate through the organization, the processes, the people, introductions, all of that, right? So I think it's extremely helpful for a new member.
Wonderful. And I guess to wrap, very soon, I want to, invite you to share with us or some of the tips that you're going to have for our participants at the event that wants to apply to CGI. What are some tips that you have for all of them?
I think the number one tip is, you got to know what your passion is, right? Like, I always believe that, what's that saying that, if you love your job, you don't work a day in your life, right? Like, so if you love your job and you know what you want to do, and be honest about what that is. If you interview with someone, don't try and change yourself to fit the job. The job has to fit you. And you have to understand that, and even if you just have a good conversation with your interviewer and say, this is where I want to go. It might not end up in a job, but I would just say, be honest about what you want. Because if you're not honest about that and you end up being in a job you don't want to be, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, right? So I'm a big believer in that honest conversation. And if you have a match and you feel that's the right thing to do, you have opportunities within CGI to move around in different roles. But I would just say my advice would be is, number one, have an honest conversation, and number two, make sure that's what you want to do. That's your passion.
Excellent. That's wonderful. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today, Jack. And I hope all of you enjoy the rest of your day at our Tech Career Lab. And for those that have not already registered, please continue the conversation with us at our roundtable at the booth. So Jack and I would love to continue the conversation. And I hope to, speak with you all again. And thank you once again, Jack, for spending the time with me and for us
You're
to get to
welcome,
learn
Grace.
about
It
your
was fun.
journey. Excellent. Thank you,
All right.
Jack.
Thank you.